let me see if I can put it in the chat here. I'll put the link here for it.
I'll try that more towards the end. I'm more worried about crossing streams.
And I was just
that comes out this summer.
And I was just experimenting with this, so I'm kind of, it's like a 30-second delay on YouTube too. So there's a chat and everything in the YouTube live, so it's kind of cool, I guess. Copy. Now now that that's done, I'll just paste this here and let's get this thing rolling, man.
You ready?
I'm ready, dude.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is Realtor Tech Talk. What we do here is talk about the latest topics, latest conversations that go on in the real estate industry related to technology. My name is Justin Lefby. I am the E-Professor. Today's topic is FBI versus Apple, which has been a conversation going on for probably the last 10 days, roughly, in hardcore news. This conversation has gone on for a lot longer than this, but it's been really heated up in about the last 10 days or so. Again, my name is Justin Lefby. I'm the E-Professor. I do all things Realtor Tech, especially teaching and trainings. And you can find me at eprofessor.com. Hey, Michael and Jason, introduce yourselves.
Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Mike. I'm from the UK and a tech consultant for the real estate industry over this side.
Excellent.
Nice work. I'm Jayson Bates, the host of a podcast here in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's beautiful and 85 degrees. I'm going to rub it in for everybody. If you want to check out my podcast, you can certainly do so by visiting my website at www.valleyofthesunrealestateshow.com. Go.
Awesome. So here's the thing. Let's just kind of break it down here real quick. You had a terrorist shooting that happened a year ago in St. Bernardino, where a lot of people, you had 11 dead, 22 injured. You had a lot of things going on. And what happened at that point in time is FBI recovered a phone. And they have been working since then with Apple on trying to crack that phone without any real success. And at this point in time, they took it to the next level and made the courts order Apple to give a solution to break that phone so they could hack in. Now, it's small breaks and small things, like they're trying to remove some basic functionality of the encryption software. The very simplest thing to understand is there's what's called a delay. You can only type so many codes in so many times before it stops. They're trying to remove that. They're also trying to say you can kind of what's called a brute force, which what they're trying to get is that removed as well. So that means you can type as many passcodes as fast as you can. So, to the phone, and you could just brute force, throw every password combination out there and eventually crack it. The government sided with the FBI and said, yes, Apple, you need to give these solutions available to this. Apple's saying, we don't want to. That's not for the privacy of our clients. That's not for the best interest of our clients. And we're not going to do it. So they're appealing right now. Today was the deadline. They had to submit an appeal today to the government. And so this is a big thing. Tim Cook sent out a major letter late last week talking about this, talking about why. Huge, nice, good letter. I'll put it in the thing in here saying why. And that has brought up a lot of conversations. You've had Facebook CEO, Google CEO, all come in there and put their additions. You've had everybody, Donald Trump talked about it. You've had everybody talk about it now. I thought it'd be a good idea to...
We only hear the silly things Trump says. We don't hear anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's true too.
Amen.
So I thought it'd be a good idea from the realtor perspective because, we do have an RPAC committee. We have things out there that can help us with this. And, RPAC does a great thing for realtors. They sit there and they support and make sure that legislation makes sense to protect realtors as well as the real estate industry in general. So I think it's a great thing to have out there because they worry so much about this stuff. This is not on their radar, and I think it'd be a good idea for us to poke the bear a little bit and make sure that we have our committees and our PAC organizations recognize what's going on. So that's the 5-hour to 1 second breakdown.
Well, now is this a privacy issue or a security issue?
Yes,
to both, right? That's the $1 million question, right? I mean, if it's privacy, then there's a lot of things that everybody holds. For realtors in particular, you're holding documents that may be contracts, personal information from clients, all those sort of things. If this cat gets let out of the bag here, so to speak, and I know this applies not just to realtors, but to every U.S. citizen for that matter, there is a lot of security risks involved, I guess, or exposure for clientele. I guess there's different things as Apple's making the argument here. And Twitter has jumped on board. I think Facebook has jumped on board. I think Instagram has jumped on board. A lot of these tech companies have jumped on board, saying, "Hey, look, if we let this cat out of the bag, where does the line get drawn next? Where does it stop?" And that's where it can trickle down to us in our profession to affect the way we conduct business. Because right now we take a lot of things for granted when it comes to security. You know, I know here we're supposed to lock our drawers. If we have clients' information, social security number, applications, whatever, you're supposed to be in a locked drawer. If you leave your desk, you're supposed to shut your computer down when you leave your desk. If your computer is backed up to a window that faces a sidewalk or something, and you have strangers walking by and they can look over your shoulder and see your computer, that's an issue. So where does it stop? And that's kind of this whole, I think, argument that Apple's kind of having.
So I think you should, protecting someone's personal information is super important.
Yeah.
But I think the second you go against the laws of the country and you decide to do something crazy like the bombings, you lose your rights. You lose your personal information. You clearly you don't care about anybody else's. Well, then, why should your rights be considered? So, and that is my view. I think the problem they're having at the moment is this: if they allow the technology to be opened, it's not only open for the people who are going against it; it's for everybody.
Right.
So, and I think that's the big problem. Is that I'm sure anybody would give out the information of the terrorist. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, see, and what they're specifically doing, and just for a little history perspective on this started a long time ago, probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Apple or the FBI went to various organizations, specifically Apple and Google, on this and said, we want you to build, quote unquote, the golden key, right? Yeah. They want you to build encryption, but we want a golden key so we get access back there for the security and safety of our citizens so we can go in and look at things and discover stuff, right? That got flatlined. That got nothing, got no traction, got killed quickly.
Yeah.
So now what they're saying is, okay, we can't do that, but we want you to do it for this one phone. We want to be able to brute force this phone and get in. The problem becomes, okay, now that you said yes to this, just as you were saying, Michael, what's next down the road? When you start that domino, how do you stop it? How do you stop that train of falling dominoes to come down? And I'll be honest with you, my opinion is simple. It is not our job as organizations, as companies, as anything out there to make the government's life easier. Not that we got to make it purposely complicated, but it's not our job to make it easier for them.
So I don't get how you can have a master golden key and then strong encryption.
You can't. That's exactly.
Yeah, you can't.
I don't get how the two work hand in hand. You can't have a one size fits all there. It's either you encrypt or you don't encrypt.
Well, here's the other thing too that I don't think anybody's putting any emphasis on. So somebody makes this code to break the password or whatever, right? In Apple. That one person, whoever that person is that writes that code, they have a lot of power, right? I mean, I don't know that Apple even trusts their own employees to keep that secret, right? So,
and when that one code gets broken,
and it's not as much that one code, right? It doesn't have to be an Apple employee. Once someone knows that there is a viable way to get in, whether they know what that solution is or is not, people are going to spend night and day trying to figure that out. Yeah, they're going to hire teams of people to do this, and it becomes a major problem. So it doesn't have to be the trustworthiness of the employees you work in. As soon as you build a break in that system, you have now built not a if. It's a win statement when that's going to happen.
Well, and the FBI has already said they have 12 other phones that have the similar problem. So they have the phones from New York when they did the bombing in Times Square or whatever, the car bomb or whatever. So they have these other phones that are kind of sitting there too that they can't get into either. And so, yeah, they're pointing out San Bernardino as this thing because it was a big deal and how many people got killed. Where New York, there weren't any casualties. They kind of caught it in time. So it's not that big of it's not a big of a newsmaker, not as much leverage for the government to kind of pry against, where San Bernardino is. So I don't really trust that they're just going to do it just for this one phone. I don't trust that one bit. Now, and the other thing is it's only 5 minutes of time that they actually need, as I understand it, right? It's only 5 minutes of time in that phone, or it's something very, very small.
That's assuming there's a 4-minute code.
A 4-minute code. So I'm not.
Or a 4-digit, a 4-digit code. That's 5 minute. That number you're referencing is assuming it's a 4-digit code because there's an X amount of iterations on that. But if they did a 5-digit code or did a passphrase, now you're talking exponential amount of time.
But they see everything else on the phone except for this 5 minutes, as I understand it.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant for cracking.
I think they have access to a lot of the.
Yes, they have a lot to it, but not the key portion. You're right. No,
you're
right.
They want like the last 5-minute conversations. Who maybe he called while he was on the run, or
but see,
that sort of
even
thing.
on that, the phone calls can be tracked. Now you don't necessarily get the history or the recordings, but you can go to carriers. You can go to Verizon, AT&T, and court order them to give out who that phone number was called to. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and if it was a text message or voicemail, same thing. You can go to Verizon, you can go all these things with a warrant and submit for this stuff. So that's why some of these things they're trying is just, it's dangerous. What they're hoping to find with now, I think that's the avenue they're trying to go in. Personally speaking, I think they're doing that because if they can get into that 5 minutes, they get into everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't know.
Are you guys using your thumbprint on your phone?
Yep.
I know.
As far as I know, your biometrics, that's different to a knowledgeable password. So the courts can order you to unlock your phone, but if you won't give them the password, that's a different story.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the courts can order you to unlock your phone with your thumb, but obviously if it's only something they can order you, doesn't mean you're going to do it.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem, right? You hear a lot of stories about that. If you go travel overseas, you do other things, make sure you also lock it down with a thumbprint and a code, because that's great. You can give them the thumbprint, but don't give them the code because that's knowledge. I mean, it's different. It's the laws in our states are very, very interesting and very, very challenging. But I think this ramification, and I'm glad Michael's in here for this one, is larger than just U.S., right? We're protecting it for ourselves, and that's what Apple's doing. They're trying to protect the U.S. citizens on this. But as soon as you build that vulnerability in the phone, the encryption or whatever, you have now opened it up to the world, because these things are sold internationally. They're sold globally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're repurposed.
Now you're building a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Well, and for the information that they're actually trying to get, I mean, I really don't. I think they can piece it together, right? The guy was a terrorist. I mean, come on. Whether it's homegrown or not, it's a terrorist. To get like these every second minute, we're never going to know the answers to some of these things, even with the phone. So I'm really kind of struggling with the whole, yes, I want to have a safer United States, but I think there's other ways to do that, a safer world for that matter. I think there's other ways to do it than just try to a phone. We're saying that the phone is national security. One phone is not. I have a difficult time. I struggle with that a little bit.
I have the problem with this is I have the domino worry on this. To me, it's always a domino effect. When you say yes to this, what does that say yes to down the road? Because now you've had applied law to be able to associate this with.
Right.
So I think,
right? I mean,
on this side of the pond, we have to be quite careful about what companies' data we store where, because there's a lot of companies that refuse to host or have their data stored on American servers or on American company servers as well. Mm-hmm. So the same as like even with Microsoft over here, we've got to be careful about it, what data is being stored where, because the US government can ask for that information to be delivered and get it.
Well, and that's why you see a lot of companies like Apple, Google, and all these companies having off-site servers, right? That's why you see Google having oceanic server base. It's oceanic law.
What do you guys know about? I saw another thing come out in kind of a spin-off from this, that when you download an app, for example, a flashlight app or whatever, that it has access to your phone, and the Chinese government and some other governments are using those as spy tools on phones. So my question being, if you can get an app, I mean, if the apps that this guy has on his phone, now maybe he doesn't have any apps on there, I don't know. But wouldn't you think that there'd be a way through the app to get the information they're looking for rather than this code that they're asking Apple to give or break?
Oh, you know, yeah, there's all sorts of things. Yes, there's all sorts of ways. And if you go back, we talked a few days or sessions ago about various technologies, right? You talked about all the home smart technology, sorts of ways for the government stuff to spy on us right now that is outside our phone arena.
Yeah.
But what Apple is specifically asking for is once that phone is turned off, as soon as it's turned off and there's a password in there, that all that data is encrypted. When you log back in, it's unencrypted. So even if you had like a flashlight thing and you had that phone off, you still couldn't get any because you have no access to that data point.
Are you sure? I mean, so when the phone's off, the app is off and you can't access it. So you have to have the phone and waken up or whatever. Awakened.
Yep.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, when that phone was on,
you're still making a solid point, because that's why you got to be careful of what you download and where you download it from, because enough is awesome, especially in the Android world. You know, Apple does a pretty good job of ferreting out a lot of things. Android has a pretty open environment, which is a beautiful thing, but it has consequences. Mm-hmm. And, you know, going back in and just opening a flashlight app because, oh, yeah, I need this flashlight so I can walk at night. Oh, that's good. But now you could have opened yourself up to the world.
You're going to wonder why your flashlight needs access to your contacts, though.
Yeah, I don't think people read that, right? I don't think most people don't.
Oh, you should. You'll be surprised at what apps get access to.
Yeah, they don't read when they're downloading the app. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think they read what they're giving access to for that app. I really don't.
And the scary actually part is how many people store information in contacts. Yeah. So, you know, you'll put some information about a person or about a, you know, whatever it is in your contacts, and you suddenly give LinkedIn and all these other things access to your contacts. All your notes are in there too.
Yeah.
That's the thing that worries me a lot. But
especially if you're actually using your phone as like a mini CRM system. The stuff you're letting out to the world is crazy, especially if you're not paying attention to what goes on. And that's what, with Android, the newest Android 6.0 Marshmallow, when you launch the app, it won't do anything. But as soon as you do something with that app, it's, you know, this app wants permission for X, and you say yes or no to it at that point in time. So, you know, you get a flashlight that says it wants access to your contacts. You can say no, but that doesn't happen until this version of Android. Before, it was a laundry list that no one read.
Right.
See, maybe there's a middle ground there for the FBI and Apple and Google, and that's that instead of having some master key, almost like SSL, they each get a copy of half the key. And in order to actually access it, they have to go through the courts, get the orders, and then put the two keys together and then get access to specific phones, not a global key to everyone's phone.
Yeah, possibly.
That's kind of what they're asking for now. What they're actually trying to ask for, and there are different things to say this is a good solution. But what they're asking for is an encryption key for encryption. Kind of what you're talking about. Split the SSL key in half.
Yeah.
And then Amazon and Apple has this, and it's a per device solution. And that's not the worst idea in the world. Again, my biggest even though that seems like a realistic ask, because again, you know, it's security versus protection versus, you know, you got this balance. But again, my problem with that is, where does that stop? Okay, well, now we want it for this one. You know, that's really a pain in the butt. It'd be much faster if you just built one simple key for it, right? How do you stop this from being sense and that one not making sense? Where do you draw that line? You know, once you say encryption can be opened by X factor, how does it stop?
No, you see, I think a one key to blank to cover them all, bad idea.
But I think if you have one key for each device, you're just one step away from that.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's a fine line. Can you imagine, I mean, how interesting your life would have to be for the FBI or NSA or whatever other MI5 to go through the courts to get access to your information? You'd have to be a pretty lively fella, because, I mean, if you want to come and look through my phone and my phone records and my life, wow, you must think I'm super interesting.
Right.
So, well, for me, it's kind of I've got nothing to hide. Obviously, I don't show everybody everything, but if the government are asking for it.
Well, this is part
if
of.
the government asks for the proper warrants, I'll give them my phone. I don't really. Again, my life ain't that interesting either. But I don't want them to be able to circumvent those steps. And again, with Snowden, they circumvented those steps.
Yeah.
That's Snowden showed a lot, unfortunately, and that's where this concern comes from. I would imagine that 2.5 years ago, if Snowden didn't send that letter out, we would not be having this conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was going to say that, and it's kind of here in the United States, we're kind of having our civil liberties kind of used against us, right? We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech and these sort of things, and it's kind of being used right now against us. Just like they wanted to build the mosque, right there at ground zero, and claim the shield of freedom of religion, and that upset a lot of people. And this is the same kind of thing, freedom of speech, and I think that's what Apple is kind of putting their hat on, saying, hey, this is freedom of speech. We're protecting freedom of speech, and it's protected. Who cares what he said? He committed an act. We know he committed an act, so who cares what he said? The government's saying, well, hey, we want to see if we can, derail a future attack. And that's where I think freedom of speech based on the principles of this country and how it was founded, I think that needs to be protected. That's my opinion. And I know national security is a big deal, but there's other ways to have national security than looking at one individual's phones or looking at every citizen's phone. I just think it's kind of big brotherish. I mean, are we becoming China, for God's sakes? I mean, China looks at everybody's phone. They monitor everybody's websites and what they can and cannot look at. It's ridiculous. And yet the Chinese people still find a way to work around it. So irregardless of what the government wants to do with this phone, there's going to be people that are going to be able to work around it. And the terrorists of all people are going to be able to work around it. So this isn't any one solution. So
it's a bit self-defeating. If Apple lock it and Google don't, you use Google. If Google lock it, you'll use another phone or another phone or another phone. So
right. The drug dealers here use those cricket phones, for God's sakes. The disposable phones. The cops, call them, and they just throw them away. And you can't trace them or whatever. I mean, it's kind of. I just think that this is a bit of the government not having something. It's like giving a child, "Hey, don't touch that hot stove," and then they go and touch the hot stove. Right? Yeah. So when you tell the government they can't do something, they get upset and they're kicking and screaming and they want it more, And so I kind of feel like, the government doesn't really have a place to do this.
Maybe it's all a plot just to keep Donald Press out the press.
It could be.
Okay,
He'll find a way.
Anything else? Apple, government.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This one, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're true to some degree there. I just think that the reason I thought this would be a good topic is I think, you think about this from a real estate perspective, back to who you're working for and who we're consulting with, right?
Yeah.
You make a vulnerability, no matter how that ability comes out, think about what's on that phone. Think about the conversations you're having with clients. Think about what they are sharing with you through email, through notes you've taken, through, name it. I mean, think about the apps you put in there. You have access to Dropbox, other things. Now, once you have access to that phone, now they can get to all this other stuff. And to me, you talk about this, and this is why I thought it was important to talk about from our industry perspective, because it's beaten to death in the tech industry for the last week. But from our industry, you got to think about it that we are carrying valuable information for the biggest investment these guys have made in their life at this point in time. And now you're giving away things that just aren't out there, and things that we can't control at that point in time. I mean, if you lose your phone, you lose your iPhone, and it goes into the trash. Okay, great. As long as you got it encrypted, no one's going to really hack in. And you just find my iPhone, wipe it out, do whatever, and you're good. But if someone has tools to hack encryption in the back end, whether it's government or not, now you are not doing our job. We are not doing our fiduciary responsibility in protecting our clients' information.
That's true. It's a doorway to every other part of your life.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where I get the most scared from this perspective. Again, Michael said it well. I'm not interesting. I mean, this would be the most interesting conversation I have all week. So it's going to be that situation. But why risk my client's information because the government wants an easier solution to be able to do their job? Again, I don't want to hinder them, but I don't find it necessary for me to make their job that much easier and my life that much riskier.
What about this too?
Why is their life so much more important than mine in that?
What about this, with Quicken Loans coming out with a Rocket Mortgage or whatever, and, most people surf the internet from their phones or iPads or whatever now, and it's just a click of a button. Think about that for a minute. If the government or some other person or entity had access to, like you just said, Justin, I mean, you're applying for the biggest purchase of your life. It's only a matter of time before you purchase a home with one click of a button too. Or you put an offer on a home with one click of a button and you do it from your phone. So, I mean, there's things that we just don't know right now that this type of decision could have impact on long lasting in our industry. Big time, because we're always looking for an easier way, a better mousetrap to purchase a home, a little more convenient, less stressful, all those sort of things that go into purchasing a home, and having that ease. If it gets to the phone or even gets to your computer for that matter, where you just click a button, and the government has access to all that. I mean, somebody else can hack that and get all your information. Holy cow! Identity theft could go through the roof.
Oh, I worry about that from the Rocket Loans strategy. Rocket Loans or someone else. I mean, Rocket, again, Quicken's got a big thing. Their big risk is losing that respect. So they'll be encrypted and pretty strong. But somebody else is going to build a bigger, better mousetrap quick, right?
Yeah.
And it might not be a company like Quicken. It might be Joe Schmo down the road. And now in one click, you've given your life away to everybody. And now you're trying to figure out what $500 million in debt.
Now I know those websites are supposed to be secure and all that kind of stuff, but if you break in or allow the hacking of a phone that's truly encrypted, it's only a matter of time before they break into. I mean, Countrywide had that big security breach not very long ago, a couple of years ago, right? Bank of America's had that. Target's had that. There've been many large corporations targeted, and there's many of them that are targeted every single day for this type of information. And then bribery, if you will. I'm sure that companies, wasn't there just a company that just paid a bunch of money? Oh, a hospital in Los Angeles or something like that. I think it was I don't know, Greg may have heard this, but I heard it on the news. There was a hospital that got hacked into and all the medical records got stolen, and they paid like some godly amount of money for that person not to release that information, or that group not to release it. So
guys, I have to shoot. Sorry.
Yeah.
Time, but
yeah, no, thanks for joining us, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye.
So I know there was that was going on too, where they were, having to pay ransom for this information. So
that's a big game right now, and you'll see that a lot, right? You'll get these phone calls. Gotten one yet or not? But you'll get these phone calls saying, we're seeing weird activity on your computer. If you give me 5 minutes, I can help you lock it down so this stuff is not going back and forth. And what they do at that point is you give them access to your computer, you give them remote access, and now they have your information, put these little Trojans basically on your computer. And now what they do is they send you an email saying, I'm going to wipe your computer, or if it's more special data, I'm going to share it with the world unless you pay a amount of dollars.
Right. That's crazy. Right?
And so what you're saying, you did that to a big company, which that's ballsy.
Yeah. It was a hospital. I mean,
right. So that's pretty ballsy because they have the manpower and the financial backing for the most part to fight those kind of things. But they do it to us too, right? So think about this again. That's why I think this stuff is so. Take that back to the phone and what we're talking about today. The same thing could happen to that phone, right? Yeah. You can get a phone call saying blah 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 blah. I've hacked into your phone, and if you don't pay me X amount of dollars, I'm going to share everything you have, or I'm going to lock your phone out. And you go, oh crap! Well, I've got my life on this phone. I don't know anything about this. Again, adding vulnerabilities is such a bad idea.
I heard of
just for the protection and security.
Do real estate agencies? And maybe I'm not using the right term here, but like ERA, for example, I think don't they have to have? Isn't there some kind of security there with the realtors' phones or their emails or something like that, doesn't it have to go through ERA Realty, for example, or, you know?
Well, that's going to be per brokerage, per state, or per association. Like in Illinois, we don't really have any hardcore rules on that. I know services will say any emails have to go through this. I know in Illinois, here's what it basically says. You have to identify who you are, that you're in real estate, who your bridge and location is with any emails that you go out. But there's really not any hard coding yet, anyways, in Illinois that says, you know, you have to go through this secured portal for conversations. It would probably be a matter of time, but not anyways. There might be other states that do that I'm not as familiar with.
I had a realtor who mentioned to me that he was having some difficulties with his email because he had to go through their servers and they picked the email for him, which was kind of upsetting to him because he had to change his email. He goes by whatever, Arizona Realtor at gmail.com or whatever, but then he had to put his name in there. And so it was causing him some frustration with forwarding and all that kind of stuff. And it was just some extra steps that he didn't feel was necessary. But I think that
we're going to brokerage level conversation, because there are certain brokerages that say, here's what you're going to have, and you get no choice with that.
But do you think that if this ruling comes out where the phone is hacked and we start
to force it?
Yeah. And then we're going to see companies like, you know, West USA's or Century 21's or Keller Williams saying, hey, look, guys, this is the way it's going to be. You're dealing with sensitive information here. You're selling DocuSigns and you're doing all kinds of stuff across your phone. It's got to be monitored.
Right. No, I wouldn't. No, I mean, I would hope that doesn't happen. That's why it's important for us to stay on top of and make sure that from a real estate industry, we are encouraging our legislators to make smart decisions on this stuff.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, if this goes the wrong way, then absolutely, you gotta, from a managing broker perspective, from an ownership, you gotta take decisions that affect you and the liability of you brokerage, your agents, and the clients you represent. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people that go into a conversation that you got to go, I got to protect all this.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, we have here in our company, if you want access to email on your phone, you have to give the company rights to your phone. And by doing so, the company then has the right to shut down or wipe your phone clean. And so a lot of loan officers tend to not do that. They tend to keep their information because they say, hey, look, these are my referral partners. These are partners that I have relationships with. They're not yours. And for you to wipe my phone clean would be, detrimental to my overall business. Because if I change companies, like, for example, one of my good friends, he used to work for a mortgage company. And when he left that company, they zapped his phone and zapped it clean. So he lost all of his contacts. He lost everything on his phone. The phone was like brand new and he was so pissed. But to the company, they're like, hey, you gave us rights to your phone and you quit. So there's information that is, sensitive to our operation. Therefore, we have the legal right to zap your phone. And so they did.
Well, and that's exactly right. This is where this stuff is risky, right?
Yeah.
And that's a right there is the perfect example of why this needs to be a conversation. Because take that one level up and you say, this is the government. Well, right?
Yeah. You didn't pay your taxes or something like that, or you didn't pay your child support, or you didn't pay your student loans. Student loans are a big deal right now, right? Oh, we're going to zap your phone. Now, they probably wouldn't do that. I'm exaggerating, of course, but you give them they have the authority to hack into your phone. Who knows what they could pull and do? They could make your life miserable.
If you're making a very big challenge. And I do have that concern. And that's, again, to me, it's not so much on phone because, yeah, if we can learn something and we can stop something from future happening, that's always a huge bit. But I am not a big fan of solving one problem because it was easy way and what the ramifications were down the road, right? I've always said this, where we got to make sure that these laws that we put in place and that we let our legislation put in place, what cascading effect happens, right?
Right.
I love the fact that seatbelt save and all this factor. I don't like the fact that legislation tells me that I have to wear a seatbelt, because if you tell me I have to wear a seatbelt, do I have to not eat food in my car? Do I not have to, do I got to have 10 and 2 on the wheels because that lives? where does this stop, and where does it stop becoming me doing what I do as a free United States citizen versus for the better interest of the and it's not an easy balance. I don't pretend to be a politician. I don't ever want to be a politician.
I know.
I don't want those worlds. But on the same token, I don't want people using government as as an scapegoat for everything.
Right. I know. I agree with that 100%. I personally, I'm kind of siding with the tech companies on this one. I know the national security, and of course, I want to be secure. 100%. I want to be secure, but we're not going to be able to stop everything, even with these phones. And so I kind of argue, at what degree of national security is this that important? Because I just don't think that you can. Had they known or been able to hack into his phone remotely, I don't think they could have stopped it anyway. Maybe.
Well, and that's a good point, right? What would have stopped from that happening? I think that becomes what you learn from the phone, but both points still have the same thing. Does that ability view outweigh the freedoms that we are guaranteed in the United States? And that's a tough question to answer. My opinion, I don't think it outweighs it. I think asking for this one tool totally ruins a lot of stuff that we have available to us from security, right? You can't. Now, again, all this is assuming that they have the proper warrants in X, Y, and Z, and I get that. But the problem is not the warrant perspective. It's what everybody else can do now that you have built this weakness inside the system. So take the government. Say we agree with the government has the right for all this. They have the right to have a code. They have a right to have a key. They have a right to get into the phone, proper legislation or proper judicial process. Mm-hmm. That matter. Now that you built that weakness, and someone else can discover that weakness, and they won't go through that process.
Right.
And to me, that is the scariest whole thing.
Do you think that Apple or Google or any of these high tech companies, do you really think that they, because the CEO of Apple, and I forget his name or whatever, but he's come out and said, hey, Tim Cook, we don't have the code. We don't know the code. We'd have to write some program to unencrypt that phone. Do you really trust that? If you write the code,
new encryption, that's absolutely the case. I mean, that's the whole point of the encryption.
So there's no way of backing, in my mind, right? And I got a simple mind, right? I'm like the mind of a worm here a little bit when it comes to some of this tech stuff. But when you write the code, it follows a certain pattern. If you just undo that pattern, wouldn't that be the code to undo that?
Assuming you had access to the phone, yes, you could. As soon as you had access to some of the stuff, you probably could backdate things. But put it to this way. It's like an old 5C phone. Yeah. So that phone did not have some of this encryption that's in place when it was first bought. But with upgrades in OS, that stuff became available and that encryption became available. So theoretically, could you drop back firmware levels? In theory, I think you could. But the only way that I know you can track firmware levels is essentially doing a hard reset. And at that point in time, the game's lost, as far as I'm concerned. So now, again, there's hackers and all sorts of stuff that have really cool tools that I never have to.
Yeah, right. So now let's take a one step backwards here a little bit. So everybody is going into smartphones, right? Smartphones are kind of the rage. Everybody has a smartphone. Before it was just a regular big, walkie-talkie thing. Then it went to flip phones, and now we're in smart. Is there a market then, or would there a market from the ruling, if the ruling came out, that you could go to the flip phone where it's not a smartphone and it's only, phone calls only kind of deal?
Well, why do you think, now again, we're not into the illegal side of the world here, and we're not going to teach anybody how to be illegal in their world.
Right.
But why do you think it lasted so long?
I'm sorry, you broke up there. What'd you say?
Why do you think pagers lasted so long?
Yeah, I saw a doctor the other day with a pager. I'm like, man, are those outdated or what? But yeah, he still had a pager.
They're outdated, but you saw a lot of drug dealers and a lot of people that were using that technology because it was harder to hack into, right? Because it was such old tech. There was not as many solutions for hacking.
Yeah.
So it was out there, and then you get a page number, you'd call on a rotary dial phone or whatever, a pay phone, and you'd have what you needed. That's why that stuff stuck around for so long, because there was an industry solution for it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So even if they hacked into this phone, I mean, would a company say, okay, well, you can buy your, untraceable phone here, and then you'd have the terrorists buying those phones?
Oh, I think so. I mean, you got social media sites that are built around that scenario, right? Not for terrorists and drug dealers, but there's things tracking about that. I mean, there's a new application called but it's newer application called Telegram. It's an instant messenger, and it's all, there is no way to track that information. It dies when you say it dies, right? It's not being held on servers. There's no place for that data, specifically built for two-sided conversations, independent. It's done. So yeah, there's technology all over the place for it.
What about I have a Google phone number. I use Google Voice, for my my voicemails and stuff like that. And they give you like a Google phone number, right? And you can attach your own phone number to that, or it forwards to your own phone number or something like that, to your service provider phone number. Is that Google phone number? Is that hackable? Do you know if that's hackable, or is that something that, I mean, if everybody went to...
Well, I would think that they're hackable. I mean, again, everything that Google does is pretty well encrypted, but I would think it's there.
Yeah, I think
that's a good question. I can tell you for sure. I can't speak specifically if that is it or not. But no, I like Google Voice. I like it for the fact of what it gives me, and I do like the fact that I know most of that stuff is in a protected server because it's an HTTPS
situation. My thought process on this is that they went in and said, okay, we want this 5 minutes. We want this code to get into this 5 minutes of this phone, right? This black hole that we're missing here to help piece this together. If he had a Google phone number, and what they're looking for is where he made phone calls, I can only assume that that's what they're looking for in this 5 minutes here, at least from what I've read. If he had a Google phone number, wouldn't that then be still encrypted? If the Google phone numbers are encrypted, or does it unencrypt itself when you get into the phone? You follow what I'm saying? It's like another layer in there of maybe security.
The answer would be I'm not sure. My thought, it should be encrypted, but I have not researched that enough to say that comfortably.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is, yes, you're adding another level, and that'd be another opportunity, right? Because you could have a phone number inside a phone number, and you've got an extra layer of intrigue going on.
Yeah, theoretically, you could have.
I don't know.
You could have 10 phone numbers inside of one phone number, right? You could.
In theory, I mean that's what Grand Central, which is what Google Voice was before, and that's what the whole premise of it was. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you call some number that gets forwarded to a totally different number. I mean, it throws people on a cold trail, so to speak, or could.
So yes, absolutely. And that's just it, right? I mean, that's where you get the big hackers. You see it on TV where they're spoofing their IP from 30 different routes across the world. You're essentially talking the same strategy, but with phone numbers.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I don't think it's a national security issue. I'm not really buying that. I know the media's put that out there. I don't know that it's really a national security thing. I think it's more or less Big Brother wanting access to something they know they can't get, and they're kind of kicking and screaming about it. And I'll probably be audited. I'll be audited this year, so just this is live streaming, so I'm gonna have the IRS after me for making that statement.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think I don't think it's a national security issue, and I do like the fact that they want solutions in place, and I always respect the fact that they're doing this quote unquote for the better interest of the United States. I think that's an admirable solution. That's what we all should get. I just don't think the way they're going about it or the solution they're asking for outweighs consequences for this action, and I think that is where this becomes from. It's an easy solution for a quick response and a knee-jerk response. That the costs are just way too great. And I think that's where we fall short on this. Because again, to me, from a national security issue, that's fine. Let's do it. We'll do what we can do, protect ourselves. If it's ourselves, put the glass bubble, fine, we're good, right? But it's not us, right? We are in this world and industry of the internet, we are a global community, whether we want to be or not. And these products have to be as secure as possible, not from the perspective that we as individuals need to protect ourselves from you, Jayson, me, Justin, the FBI. It is because there are countries specifically dedicated to hacking our world.
Yeah.
To do this and make that vulnerability for a one-time incident based on our business is going to hurt us in the end.
Yeah. Now I will say this here. I think the local. I may be misspoke. I might be misspeaking here a little bit, but the local attorney general's office has boycotted Apple as a result of this. They're not issuing any new Apple phones to their employees as a result of Apple not, giving this information. Do you think that this will hurt Apple or help Apple? I think it'll help Apple. That's my personal opinion.
I think it's both, really. I mean, you have Trump's boycott. You have different people saying it's not patriotic to ignore the FBI. This is not a clear cut yes or no. I mean, think about Chick-fil-A, right? You had people boycotting Chick-fil-A. Did that help or hurt them? That helped tremendously.
Yeah, it helped them. Right.
I think for people like me, that is a huge tech guy, and you have someone that likes Apple, you're going to have more Apples bought in this quarter because they know that now these people are protecting us.
Yeah, they're standing up.
A couple of companies here and there that won't because it's a patriotic issue, and that's such the wrong way to go at this. This is not a patriotic. This is not we're fighting the government. This is we are trying to protect everybody. And both groups, FBI and Apple, are trying to protect the better interest. They just believe it in completely two different ways.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, the same premise that Trump is running on, right? He's sticking up for the little guy. Well, Apple is kind of sticking up for the little guy. They're fighting, the government. So I think it'll help. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it's going to hurt them at all. And especially with the other tech companies getting involved and starting, backing Apple. I mean, there's some formidable, brain power going on there. So I
think it's huge. This is just one step of many, and this won't be decided for 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Whether or not they got to give in on this one conversation is starting because Apple took a strategic defense saying, look, we want to get ahead of this game and everybody in the world to know what's going on with this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And it's important to know. Again, to me, it's a conversation that our real estate PAC questions need to be aware of, because it's great that you're protecting our interests from consumers and by home inspection fees, title fees, all this stuff. That's a good thing. But this is another thing, and this is something that you got to protect with, because there's going to be more expense and more cost spent on this, and more value lost if we're not protecting our agents right.
Yeah, I agree, man. We need to protect our agents, protect the real estate.
Because if you protect the agents, who are you protecting in the long run? The consumer for that information that we hold dear.
Right, absolutely. I know, like I said at the beginning of the blab here, I mean, identity theft, at least on our side, because we deal with a lot more personal information. You typically don't have social security numbers and stuff like that. We do. It is super hot topic in the mortgage world. You hear all the time of mortgage companies, or even any company for that matter, dumping and not shredding the paperwork and finding stuff in the dumpsters. You got crackheads that surf these dumpsters for this information and whatnot. That's a little bit old school. So this whole thing that the government's trying to do is just a more techie version of that dumpster diving kind of thing. And so I just, it's a super hot topic, and I think we need to, as realtors and lending professionals, need to take this very seriously as to what it could and what kind of impact it could have on the future. I don't know what's going to have, because I don't know what the future holds. But I do know this, that I don't think it's going to be it's just going to make things more difficult. I don't think it's going to make it easier. Now, realtors don't need to be relaying information and giving information out to the world. Yeah. I was at an association that had 4 open terminals. And I went to one because I had to print some things out real quick.
The Chrome box, right? The Chrome machine, when you log in, you can log in and put your information in there. Had someone else's information sitting right there. So if I was mischievous, I could go in and look to see, I could see all the Google stuff he had and all that stuff. I'm going,
Yeah, right. Exactly. I've heard of
so we don't need help.
Yeah, no, I've heard of technology that can actually push your information from your phone to somebody else's phone through Bluetooth. I guess I don't know if there's an app, I don't know what it is, but like your contact information, if you wanted to V card somebody just walking down the mall, walking down a busy street, and they had their Bluetooth on, it would automatically connect and send your contact information to that person. Now, if there's a hack for that, I mean, come on, do we really need to see this guy's? Is it really national security?
No.
I'm not buying it.
And most still don't. I mean, that's what kills me, right? When you turn your phone on and off, most people don't do what that guy did. They don't put a lock on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, even
it's still encrypted when the phone's off, but as soon as they swipe up, it's on, it's uncrypted. So there's still, I would say, I think the number is like 60-some%. There's still so many people that don't lock their phones.
Oh yeah, tons, man. And I mean, the Samsung phones, you can like beam photos and stuff to each other through your phone. I mean, that's hackable. So I know it's not an iPhone here or whatever, but FaceTime, that's hackable. I would imagine you could hack into that somehow.
Yeah.
So
sure,
this little 4-digit code, I'm not buying it.
No, I just think it's a struggle. And again, to me, the bottom line is both industries are coming from the same protect things. Apple's trying to protect us, the consumers.
Yeah.
The FBI trying to protect. Both are doing it. I just disagree with the tactic FBI is taking on this because I think the consequence outweighs the cost for this one item, and it's not so much from them. I trust them for the most part for doing the right thing. I just don't trust everybody else in the world once you add weakness to a phone.
So what's the difference between this hack and waterboarding? Is there a difference? We're worried about national security, but then we won't waterboard people who have information that we want. Right? I mean,
well, no, it's a fairly it's an extreme example, but it's a fairly good question because you are talking about human rights.
Yeah. And so we have the right to privacy, right? And so, but this person has information that could be a national security. Okay, well then, but you can't waterboard. You can't spank them. You got to ask them politely to give you the information. Well, nobody's going to do that.
Oh yeah, no, and that's just it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a good example. This is an extreme example. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you're talking human rights issues. Why is one another? And
again, where do you draw the line, right? Where does the line get drawn for the government? And the government has shown, history has shown us that the government will push that envelope, push it, and have these shields up or these excuses or whatever adjective you want to use to justify what they're trying to do when there's other ways to do it. Yeah, it's maybe more work, maybe more man hours, whatever. We know the guy was a terrorist. We know he went to Syria or he went to, and got trained overseas. We know all that. So we knew that, and I know with our civil liberties and stuff, we can't automatically assume and we can't judge people, but we kind of, I think, had a pretty good idea. This guy was on the radar, and his wife was as well, a little bit. I think they flew under the radar a little bit, but for the most part, you're going to be able to tell that attack may be imminent. If somebody goes in the Middle East, they're not going there to lay on a beach. I mean, come on. There's no vacation destinations there. They have family, and if they're taking a lot of money, and you can follow the money trail, and they're getting this and that, and you can put the puzzle pieces together to a degree. You don't need a phone to put the puzzle pieces together. That's my CIA intake on that.
Again, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think we've said it.
We beat that
now.
Yeah.
I just think we're at a situation right now where this is a conversation to have up front to make sure everyone knows in the world this way.
Yep.
And just to make sure that that information is being relayed and our interests are being relayed out there, because again, from an industry, we're still a powerful industry, and we need to relay that to the government, that the solutions being taken right now outweigh the consequences from a global world.
I agree, man. On that note, I think we should end this here. What do you think?
Hey, it's the first time in about a month we've been an hour.
I know, right?
Amazing.
We're trying to be conscious of time, right? Polite of time.
Everybody for listening. Hopefully we didn't beat you to death on political rantings. This isn't necessarily meant to always political rant, but this is a technology slant on a tool that's very important in our lives, and that phone. So again, my name is Justin Lethby. I'm the E Professor of Real Estate, and that's where you can find me, E Professor of Real Estate. I'm where I do training, CE educations, and just basic technology coaching. Find me there. And Jayson?
Yes. This was a great subject. I think it could potentially lead to bigger problems in our industry. So I'm glad we touched base on it now. And remember this, because we will be the first who have talked about this. Anyway, you can reach me. Remember this 5 years from now. Remember that conversation, Justin? You can reach me at www.valleyofthesunrealestateshow.com. I'm Jayson Bates, the host of a podcast right here in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix, Arizona. Very cool,
awesome,
man.
Awesome.
All right, cool.
It is paused.
All right, awesome.
I was breaking up a little bit, wasn't it?
It was breaking up a little bit. I don't know if that was me or you. Was that?
No, it's me. Every so often on my computer, it will, with the video processor, it will hang. And usually I can know right when I turn the computer on, so I can reset it and turn it back on. Yeah. Unfortunately, this started about 10 minutes into the session. I'm like, crap, really? So, oh well, that's life.
The stream, I think, went pretty good.